So we have ended the introduction. Before we proceed with our conversation, I have a very brief video clip that encapsulates the state of South Asia today. And that, I think that summarizes the topic that we had today, the hatred and division in South Asia. So let's play that clip first, then we'll proceed with the conversation. You can also watch. Pervez, you can turn that way. I think this video sets the context perfectly for the South Asia that we'll be discussing right now. That particular incident that took place in Assam in India a couple of years ago. So it is so disturbing. I have written one entire chapter about two similar incidents in India. The fallen person, his name is Moinul Haq, another Junaid Khan. Those two were the victims of this brutal violence of this kind. So, if you noticed, in our parts of the world, even if we are enemies during our lifetimes, after somebody has fallen or after somebody has died, we have a culture, we have a custom of respecting that person. We have chats and talking approvingly of those people. But here, what we can say, that's the total inversion of that moral value, in which a fallen person who has been shot, who has been injured badly, and probably is dead. So the other person is taking a huge stride, he is jumping and landing in the chest of that fallen man. I think that clip perfectly illustrates the state in which our two southern neighbors, Pakistan and India, have gone. So, how is it that we have reached in this stage in South Asia? So that will be the main question that will unpack over the coming hour. So I'd like to start with Pervez ji. So he was here in Nepal in 2011 in Kathmandu to deliver the Mahesh Chandra Regmi lecture. At that time, in one of the governors in Pakistan, Salman Taseer, had just been assassinated, and that somehow related to blasphemy. So let's start that question of blasphemy and the co-option of this extremist religious ideology by the state. So how is that in Pakistan somebody assassinates a governor and people celebrate the assassin? So we'll start the discussion briefly from Pakistan, then we'll move to India, please.
You know, I wish I didn't have to talk about violence, because I come to this very peaceful, beautiful place, Nepal, and I would like to forget the violence that there is. But Jiwan, because you tell me that I have to speak about it, okay, I will. So there was a Christian woman, Asia Baby, and she was accused of drinking from the same pot as a Muslim. And so there were some hot words. She was accused of blasphemy. She was then sentenced to death. And this became a major case. Eventually she was freed. But in the process, the governor of Punjab, he was, his name was Salman Taseer. He tried to modify the blasphemy laws, not change them, not repeal them, but he tried to introduce a change in that, so that you have to have some proof before you can accuse somebody of saying bad things about Prophet Muhammad. His guard, he had 20 guards, and this guard, who was very filled with religious emotions, he shot him to death. He put 20 bullets into the governor, and he became a national hero. I remember that very terrible day when it happened, and I was invited to a television discussion. It was a live discussion. There were 100 students, and there was me, and there were two Maulanas over there. And the Maulanas were celebrating that. And I said, this murder is not by that guard. It is you who are guilty of killing Governor Salman Taseer. Their response, I have to say this in Urdu. One of them looks at his hand and he says, काश के मैंने अपने हाथों से खुद मारा होता. So look, this is a country, Pakistan is a country that is totally different from the country that I grew up in. And why did it happen? It was because religion was used by the Pakistani state, by Pakistani rulers for purposes of claiming legitimacy. When you use religion, you can excite people, you can get votes, you can get support. And so our leaders in Pakistan have fallen into the ditch. They care about these things, they don't care about matters of justice, of human dignity. But then they ultimately suffer the cost. And we have seen this now, not once, not twice, but many, many times over. So as you know, in Pakistan, we fought with the Americans and the Saudi Arabians against the communists in Kabul. That was back in 1979. And we then created those madrasas. We put in arms, ammunition, training. The ISI was doing this openly. And then, of course, they won. The ISI won, America won, the Pakistani military won the game. They thought they won the game. But then the religious forces that they had put up started showing their true colors. So in 2007, they took over a big portion of Islamabad, where I live, and this was the Lal Masjid, which the Taliban linked militants spearheaded. They took over. And then there was a civil war in Islamabad. For days there was firing and firing, helicopters dropping bombs. Hundreds of people died. Well, those militants were crushed by the Pakistan army. But then the Pakistan army didn't learn its lesson. The government didn't learn its lesson. They kept supporting the Taliban. The whole world was saying, don't do this. And Pakistan would say, no, we are not doing this. But everybody knew they were doing this. So finally, Pakistan won. And the Taliban were put in place in Kabul. What a great victory for the Pakistani ISI and the Pakistani establishment. And people were celebrating. Imran Khan said, now they have broken the chains of slavery. He was so happy that the Taliban had won. He said they have broken the chains of slavery. That was 3 years ago. What is happening now? I'm called to the police academy from time to time. They want to understand why they are being killed by the Taliban every day. So you open the Pakistani newspapers, any one of them, and you will see So many died here, so many died here. Who is killing them? Not Hindus, not Christians. It is other Muslims who are killing them. It is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP, which is responsible for the ghastly murders every day. They kill our soldiers, our policemen. Whose fault is it? Well, the fault is when you put murderers, these religious extremists in power, this is what will happen.
Thank you. So, coming to RC, he has written not one but many books related to what's unfolding in India. One of them is titled Partition of the Heart. So, I was reading the story of Junaid Khan in that book. So, I mentioned two names earlier of lynchings and killings in India. As you saw, Moinul Haq, he was first shot and then how his body was desecrated. Another Junaid Khan, one teenager, was killed in a packed train. That was around 2016. So, Harshji, as a part of a campaign called Karma-e-Mohabbat, he goes to the houses of the victims of these lynchings and he consoles them and shows solidarity. So I was struck particularly by the scene that you saw in the railway station when you revisited where Junaid Khan was killed. So can you please briefly tell Junaid Khan's story and with help of that, how Indian society at large has been responding to this, including that scene in the railway station, please.
2000, we see India when we became free. Partition happened. 1 million people, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, slaughtered each other. A new country was born on the basis of religion, but India chose under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi that India would be a country where people of every religion and no religion would have equal rights in every way. This was opposed by the RSS, and people of that ideology assassinated Gandhiji. And today we've reached a point in the journey of our republic when members of the RSS are holding every high constitutional position in India today. And since 2014, India has changed beyond imagination. As Pervez was saying, the India of my childhood is a very different India from what I see today. And most of all, it is symbolized in acts of lynching. And before I tell the story of Junaid, I just wanted to explain what the significance of lynching is. See, we've had communal violence. After partition riots, Gandhiji was assassinated, and it looked like we have now finally put this religious hatred behind us. And for the first 15 years or so, with Nehru's leadership, India was relatively peaceful. But from 1961, communal riots started, Jabalpur, and it went on, and the worst was 2002 in Gujarat. Now, in every major episode of communal violence, whether it is in Delhi, whether it is the anti-Sikh violence, thousands are killed. So you might ask, in lynching, one person is killed here, 2 people are killed there. Why is it significant? See, you have to understand that lynching is performative violence. It's violence like theater. It's violence as a public celebration. Lynching, actually, its most terrifying example is America, where for about 60 years we saw lynching of African Americans. In all those years, there are about 4,000 cases of lynching that have been identified. So people might say, in a single riot, we probably lose more people. But every lynching used to be, like a celebration in America. Crowds used to gather, families used to gather. It used to be like a picnic, and they would see this African-American man being tortured, his fingers being cut off, his genitals being cut off, and very painfully he would be finally hung. And a historian of that time had said that every lynching was like 1,000 lynchings that reverberated across the land and the rivers and settled as fear in the heart of every African-American. In India, lynching, we don't have people gathering in the way that happened there, but we have the video camera. So every case of lynching is actually videographed by the perpetrators and circulated, and millions consume it. And its impact, therefore, and then I'll tell you the story of Junaid briefly, and I'll tell you what the impact was. Junaid was a young boy studying in a madrasa, and he had come home for the Eid vacations. He had become a hafiz. Hafiz is somebody who has memorized the Quran. And so through the period of Ramzan, he used to sit and from memory recite the Quran. People would gather and they gave him a little bit of money, and then he said, I'm going to go to Delhi. He was close to Delhi to buy gifts for Eid for my family. He was on this train close to Delhi and visibly Muslim, and a group of people began to kill him, and they killed him very brutally. And he was bleeding so much that they finally threw him onto a railway platform. And he lay there bleeding for about 45 minutes. His brother was with him. His brother ran here, there, asking people for help. Nobody helped. Nobody, not a single person reached out. No one helped. The railway officials didn't help. And the boy bled to death. I went later to the railway station, as he said, and I asked them, I said, what did you do? How did you let this boy die? And they all said, we were not there. We were doing something else. It was a small station. You could not have seen, could have not seen. I went, I wrote about this, and I start with the lines, Junaid was my son. I did not know him when he was alive. His life was very different from mine. And yet in the way that he was killed, I mourn him as I would mourn my son. And a word about the impact. It required one lynching. Young Muslim men all across the country have told me that uske baad, we are so frightened to travel on a train. Our mother tells us, hum phone karen, so don't say salam alaikum. Don't let anyone know you're Muslim. Don't get into any kind of discussion. Political discussion, to bilkul don't get into it. Don't share your food. And this kind of fear, that is the impact of one lynching. And that's why it is so terrifying. You see, riot, at least, is located in one place. It has a beginning, it has an end. Lynching breaks that down completely. It means that anybody, symbolically, anybody traveling on a train who's visibly Muslim can be killed. And that fear. So every lynching in India is like 10,000 lynchings that reverberate across the land and the rivers and the seas and settles as fear in the heart of every Muslim and hate in the heart of many Hindus. And I'll just conclude this part with another train story more recently. A railway policeman was on a train and he got into an argument with his superior. He shot him dead, and then he walked through the train 15-20 minutes, unencumbered, and he found people who looked visibly Muslim, and he killed them. He killed one, he killed a second, he killed a third. And then he speaks to a video camera saying, I'm doing this for Modi and Yogi Adityanath. Now, the next morning, in my office, a young Muslim colleague, she came in and she was sobbing. She was really weeping inconsolably. I sat her down, I said, Bete, what happened? She said, since I've heard this news, I cannot think of anything else, because those men could have been my father. They could have been my brother. And then I thought, we have 200 million Muslims. Probably this conversation is happening in 1 million homes. Nobody is there to reach out. So I wrote an article which actually said the speech that Mr. Modi did not make. And I said, I'm the Prime Minister of this country. I'm deeply anguished by what has happened. I'm even more anguished and ashamed that he said he did it in my name. I assure every Muslim in this country that they're equal citizens of this country. But he did not speak a word. This is actually the India that we are creating, the India that we saw there. He was he was the official photographer brought along to take photographs of the demolition. There were huge demolition of these people, very poor people. So this one man in anguish came running out and saying, don't do this. And they shot him in his chest. He fell down, probably dead. And this photographer was so elated by this that he jumped on him, on his chest over and over again. Please understand, hate does target the community that is being targeted. But I think even much more so, as Pervez Bhai was talking, it much more corrodes the community that is dominant. What happens to us when we get radicalized in this way? Where do we lose our elementary human compassion? That is what we need to think about.
Okay. So, about the person who was killed in that clip, I have written a multiple page story in my book, Nuntel, where I explore about the fate of all the Muslims from East Bengal who migrated to other parts of the world. And I have compared that to the migration of my own ancestors. So now, coming to Pervez ji, so there is both hatred and division at multiple levels, right? Earlier you talked about the state actors, institutions that nurtured that religious bigotry and fanaticism. But what about the society at large? Just like as in India, Harji explained what happened in that train station where the bystanders simply refused to help that dying boy. So how has Pakistani society evolved over these decades when the state and the state institutions have nurtured religious fundamentalism? So what's your take on its impact on society and people?
So as Harsh was saying, the real danger is when people become complicit, when they become infused with hatred. And so even if Germany was 1% Jew at that time, the very fact that the people of Germany were convinced by Adolf Hitler into so hating the Jews that they committed genocide over there. Now that is the thing that one really has to be afraid of. In terms of Pakistan, let me ask you to judge for yourself with one incident. I'll say it briefly. So this was the 10th of October 1994. I was in my house, and my house was inside the campus of Quaid-e-Azam University, where I taught for a very long time. And it was 10 o'clock at night when I heard 2 gunshots. I ran and saw somebody running away. And I saw my neighbor, or rather his body, in the driveway. My 11-year daughter ran behind me to find out what was going on, and I said, Asha, jao ek chadar lekar aao. I wrapped him up. My neighbor, who was earlier my student in the physics department, later got his PhD. I put him in my car. His wife was sitting next to me. I drove like a madman, but he died in my car. He was an Ahmadi, murdered because he was the only Ahmadi professor in the entire university. Not a very religious man. Yeah, he would go for Friday prayers, but otherwise he was neither here nor there. The sad thing is that I was finding it difficult to load his body in my car, and there were houses all around, and nobody from my neighborhood came to even help me pick him up and put him into my car. And normally I do not pray, but when a day later he was to be buried, I went there for the prayers, and I did not see my colleagues who had been his colleagues for 10 years or more. They did not come either. So the society is so infused with hatred that they have lost their humanity. These are very good people I'm talking about. So many of my neighbors are very sweet to dogs. They are caring about each other. But when it is told to them that he belongs to the Ahmadi sect, then their humanity, then all that collapses. Then they forget that they're dealing with human beings. This is one example, but then I could give you others. And, the example you gave was very graphic. I don't want to give you more examples. You know what I am talking about. Now, this doesn't happen all of a sudden. It happens gradually. It happened in Pakistan not for the first 20 years, but once it is put into the law, and the law that was passed was called the Objectives Resolution 1948, which said that Pakistan will have two kinds of citizens. There will be the Muslims and there will be non-Muslims. And of course, non-Muslims will get all the rights, but they cannot be president of Pakistan or the head of the army or other important positions. Now, once you start discriminating between your citizens, however gently, and it was gentle then, now it is not gentle. Now it is open, drastic, in your face that you are Muslim, you are privileged, you are non-Muslim, you are a second-rate citizen. This is what we must be afraid of. I hope it will never come to Nepal, because if you become a Muslim Rashtra, or a Hindu Rashtra, or a Buddhist Rashtra, or whatever religious state is possible, then it's the beginning of going down the steep, slippery slope, one which has no end. That's what you have to watch out for.
Okay, now coming to Harshji, and I think we should also focus on what we can do and how we can combat that hatred and division. But briefly, Harshji, we saw this during the latest general elections in India also. So in the Indian population also, there is a certain segment of the Indians who are particularly enamored by the ideology in the right. So can you touch upon briefly upon that? So, and then we'll go to the part of what we can do about it. 2 to 3 minutes.
See, Pervez spoke about Nazi Germany. I spent a few months studying what happened in Nazi Germany to understand what is happening in my own country. And it was terrifying to see how similar, step by step, everything is being repeated. But I realized that the horror of Nazi Germany was not Hitler, this evil man called Hitler. The horror of Nazi Germany was ordinary people. The numbers of ordinary people that participated in this slaughter of 6 million Jews and many other, the Roma and Sinti, the homosexual men, disabled people, etc., is terrifying. It's terrifying because how quickly a country that regarded itself as the most civilized country in Europe or in the world could get so brutalized. And from Hitler's election to his death and suicide was just 12 years. How completely a society can get so brutalized. We need to understand the danger, and that danger is, Nepal is the last country in South Asia. Every other country has now gone down that dark hole. And once you start slipping into it, it just changes hearts and minds. I'm sorry, I'll give you one more graphic story. I just want to underline this and very briefly. In the Karwan-e-Mohabbat, I had made a call. I just said society has to respond if the state is not responding, and we have to respond to hate with love and with the demonstration and performance of love, and which is why I set off in one journey. We've now done 50 journeys, and sadly, they don't stop. In one of these journeys, there was a single man. This was not a mob killing. It was the 25th anniversary of the demolition of the Babri Masjid. He wanted to performatively kill a Muslim man, any Muslim man, on that day. Now, but he wanted it to be a performance. There's no point just killing. So he first got his 14-year-old nephew as his ally. And between them, they made this conspiracy that I will kill and you film it. So there were Bengali Muslim people who used to come to Rajasthan to do buildings. So he called this man at 9 o'clock in the morning saying, I want this construction, please come to this place. This man arrives, the boy is filming it. And within 15 seconds, he starts, beating him with, and that man's last words is, Babu, maine kiya kya? And he becomes unconscious, and then he has petrol, he puts the petrol, he sets him on fire. But what is most terrifying is that the boy's hand is completely steady. It doesn't shake at all. And then he turns to the camera, this older man, and he gives a long tirade about why he is doing this against Muslims. And the idea of hatred so much. So a month later, I called a meeting in the same area of the Hindu community. And I said, okay, you don't care about what's happening to Muslims. Do you want your son to be what this boy has become? And you have to decide. And I think that I again underline that we have to, I'm proud that, we got our freedom saying we will be a country that is kind, that is equal, and that is just. That is what is being, do you want a Nepal that is kind, equal, or just? Then you cannot remain silent, and what we can do, we can talk about. But Martin Luther King somewhere said, in the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies. We will remember the silences of our friends.
So now I think we are in the last round of questions. Pervez ji, ever since you came to Kathmandu, we have been discussing these issues formally, informally. So there is a huge question about what can be done, what can we do, and what's our responsibility and what's our agency as citizens. Being a lifelong crusader against this extremism, fanaticism, and fundamentalism. So what are your lessons about what citizens like you and me can do, what you have been doing in Pakistan, and what are your lessons or what are your suggestions for people like us in Nepal?
First of all, you must protect your school curriculum from being infiltrated by the fundamentalists. This is what has happened in Pakistan and is happening now in India.
Yeah.
It is in schools and as young people that the minds are most easily infiltrated. And this has been confirmed by studies on animals also. So ethologists have done a vast amount of work on this. How you bring up your children in your homes and in your schools determines their mindset, and that is what stays with them for the rest of their lives. Okay, that's one thing. One thing that we have had a tiny amount of success with in Pakistan is highlighting abuses of the kind that Harsh talked about, but there are even worse ones in Pakistan. I don't need to talk about them. But highlighting them and documenting them and then putting it on the international media. Now, when our leaders read something in the Guardian or the Statesman or the Economist or the New York Times, rarely, of course, but when they read that, they say, oh, this is something that is really dangerous. We must do something about it. You know why? Because these are not leaders. We don't have leaders. These are pimps and thieves and crooks who are running our government, and they have vast properties in Dubai, in Australia, London, New York, wherever. And they, sort of get worried that, hey, if somebody starts accusing us, what will happen to our properties? Could we be denied our visas? And in fact, Modi was denied his visa before he became Prime Minister. So that sort of thing, highlight it, put it before the international media, let the world know if something goes wrong. Of course, be perfectly honest and document everything that goes on properly.
Okay, Harshji, same question with Indian context.
See, this is the central question that troubles me and engages me every moment of my waking life and working life, because I'm seeing India hurtling towards what can end up as a genocidal project, and I don't want to let that happen. So 2-3 quick things. I mean, we could spend a long time, but the first most important lesson for me is you cannot fight hate with hate. Your hate, I am going to respond with my hate. Hate is only going to get deepened. I think that's the most important thing, that we have to find a way of resistance that actually reflects love. Love as politics, love as your social action, that is your resistance. And, in India, I'm facing persecution, and so many crimes have been charged against me that I could spend this life and the rest next in prison. And they call me a dangerous man, and I'm a dangerous man because I speak about love. So have the courage in these times to speak about love, to fight for love. I think that is where we need to start. Second, our politicians, and we have one fine and respected political leader here. Those who say that they believe in building a country that is kind, equal, and just, you cannot remain silent about what is going on. In India, more and more, like the Congress party, etc., they're doing what is called soft Hindutva. I have a very fine member of parliament friend called Manoj Jha. We were in a panel together, and he said, I don't understand what this soft Hindutva is. Koi hard shaitan bhi hota hai aur koi soft shaitan bhi hota hai. Shaitan to shaitan hi hota hai. So, if you are saying I'm opposing in an ideological battle by pretending to be that what I am opposing, what are you trying to do? So have the courage that we believe in a, we were set up as a country where we said it does not matter if you worship Khuda or Allah or Bhagwan or whoever, Jesus or nobody, you are a fully equal citizen. So that is the second thing that I'd like to say. Third is that this partitions of the heart, and people ask me this and they get dissatisfied because it's not as if aisa solution hai. The RSS has been working, next year they'll complete 100 years. They've been working with great dedication for 99 years. We have not. Those of us who believe in a different, we have to, at every stage, I find young people who work with me, wonderful young people, most of them say they've heard hatred most of all from their parents, in their own homes, in their, So with love, how are you going to counter that? I mean, you have to break you hear it from your friends, you counter it there. You hear it in your social media, you counter it there. Don't remain silent. Fight every partition. And lastly, I'll quote, there's a very well-known writer, I won't name her, but she wrote to me, and I just wanted to quote. She said, Harsh, the time for warnings is over. This is completely upon us. And we have to resist in whatever ways we can and bear witness, which is what I'm trying to do, and Pervez is trying to do, and I'm sure Jiwan is trying to do. But the second line was even more important. She said, however, depoisoning a river is not easy. There goes the rest of your life and mine. We have to fight for the rest of our lives.
Thank you. So now the floor is open. We'll take likely 2 questions only. So as an organizer, I cannot violate the laws of not extending time. That's why only 2 questions. Usaji, Ganesh sir. Mike.
धन्यवाद. म नेपालीमा प्रश्न सोध्छु. डाक्टर जीवनले यसलाई अनुवाद गरेर अनि यसको उत्तर पनि अनुवाद गरेर नेपालीमा अथवा हिन्दीमा भनिदिनु होला. हामीले पछिल्लो समय सार्क एसियामा भएका हिंसाहरूको विषयमा बहस गऱ्यौँ. तर यहाँ आज पछिल्लो समयमा बङ्गलादेशमा अल्पसङ्ख्यक हिन्दूहरूमाथि भएका विषयहरूमा चर्चा भए जस्तो लागेन. हाम्रा नेपालका आधिकारिक मिडियाहरूले पनि यो बारेमा खासै समाचारहरू दिइरहेका छैनन्. तर हामीले हिन्दी इन्डियन च्यानलहरू हेर्दा त्यहाँ धर्मगुरुहरूमाथि उनीहरूलाई थुनिएको, त्यहाँ मन्दिरहरू भत्काइएको र अल्पसङ्ख्यक हिन्दूहरूमाथि एक किसिमको विभेदकारी आक्रमण गरिएको समाचारहरू आइरहेका छन्. यसमा वास्तविकता भएको चाहिँ के हो र यसमा उहाँको डाक्टर हर्षको धारणा के छ, उहाँलाई यो कुरो म भन्न चाहन्छु. धन्यवाद.
Thank you. We'll take one more question and together. I'll translate.
Assalamu alaikum, Sat Sri Akal, Namaskar. I'm Usha Titikchu from Nepal. Just 2-3 examples. One, Ahmadiyya community from Pakistan are having refugee status in Nepal, and I'm very much close contact with them. And the second, all the fundamentalist group, especially from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, they are very much active in Nepal. And the Jamaat group is also very much active in Nepal. So now Nepal is, now we make Nepal as a secular federal republic Nepal. And lots of people who are here who fought for this political change. But now the problem is most of the political parties became a mouthpiece of the Hindu fundamentalism in Nepal. I'm sorry to say that. And the second, recently the previous person who asked the questions about Hindus who got beaten up in Bangladesh, the way the BJP channels are making propaganda against Hindus in Bangladesh, right? So that is the fact. So now, how we can go forward to have South Asian solidarity against all kind of religious fundamentalism and the propaganda with the love and hugs. And I request all the Nepali friends also in Nepal, we should not follow Indian BJPs and RSS media. That is one, right? The second, the RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh from India, they are very much active in Nepal since many years. I can give you lots of examples how the RSS, the Hindu fundamentalist group, is active in Nepal. So we should loudly fight against the Hindu fundamentalism and all kind of religious fundamentalism in Nepal, in South Asia.
Thank you.
The last. So I wish the Nepal and the South Asia should not be genocide by the religious fundamentalists, how the Israeli genocide is against the free Palestine. So I would like to raise a voice again, Free Palestine Jindabad. Free Palestine Jindabad.
Thank you very much. The first question was, while we talked about all these things of division, hatred, these things, and violence in Pakistan and India, why didn't we talk about recent developments in Bangladesh? That one question.
Ah.
This, of course, you understood.
You know, since you mentioned Bangladesh, I have a little story to tell you because I have I visited Dhaka 3 weeks ago, and for the first time in my life, this was for a physics conference that I went there, but I spent a lot of my time with students over there, and interestingly, they took me to the place where there is, inside the Dhaka University campus, there is a Hindu temple. We had our study group over there, Hindu students, Muslim students, sitting together outside the temple and talking about the kind of things that we are talking over here. So I thought that was remarkable. Then we went, and there is a statue of Gautam Buddha, and it is 30 feet high. I asked, when was this made? And they said 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, something like that. And I said, I'm so thrilled to see this because this could never happen in Pakistan. So I don't know about the future of Bangladesh. I hope Hindus and Muslims live together in peace as they used to for centuries before Mr. Jinnah started all this mischief. Finally, you said something about Ahmadis. I am not in favor of the Ahmadi religion. I think they are actually very orthodox people. The way they treat their women, horrible. But if they are going to get killed in Pakistan, then I will defend them. And that is, I think, a position that Harsh has to take. He doesn't like Muslims.
I do.
You do? Oh, he likes Muslims. Oh, he likes Muslims. But he defends them because he likes them. I defend Ahmadis even though I don't like them.
I defend them because they're being persecuted.
Yeah, that's the same. That's the important thing. Whoever is being persecuted, you don't have to like them. You have to defend them.
Okay, Harshik, closing arguments with the answer to our question.
So to my friend there about Bangladesh, see, it is extremely regrettable that Hindus are facing violence in Bangladesh. But we have to see what is the attitude of the state. The official position of Muhammad Yunus was very strongly against it. The student leaders spoke strongly against it. So our problem in India is not simply that Muslims are facing persecution. It is that the state is actively supporting that. So I feel there's a difference and the equivalence is wrong. And it is largely being weaponized by the BJP RSS to justify then further violence. So the recent violence in Sambal and etc., they actively say, look what is happening in Bangladesh, that is why we are doing this here. So we have to be careful in this. And what we have to do in South Asia, I mean, I wish we could speak longer. I just recall something that Gandhiji said. You see, in the last months of his life, he went to Calcutta when there was violence going on in Calcutta, and he went on a long fast and he did various things. So लोगों ने उनके ऊपर ये आरोप लगाया कि देखिए गांधी जी आप तो बड़े मुस्लिम परस्त हो गए हैं. You become very pro-Muslim. तो गांधी ने कहा हाँ मैं इंडिया में तो मुस्लिम परस्त होऊंगा, उसके बाद मैं पाकिस्तान जाऊंगा और वहाँ मैं हिंदू परस्त होऊंगा. I will now, yes, I'm pro-Muslim in India, and I will go to Pakistan and I'll be pro-Hindu there. I think that is the secret for what we have to do in South Asia. That every minority, and it's not about being Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist or anything else, because the strange thing about South Asia is that in every case you'll see a persecuted community in one country is the persecuting community in the other. So I'm not standing with Muslims or Hindus. My family was the most, my family is from Pakistan, and they were uprooted in 1947 amidst great violence. And a lot of my extended family is really angry with me, and they say, after all that we suffered in partition, you've gone and taken the wrong side. So my answer to them is, after all we suffered in partition, who better than us can understand what it means to be persecuted for your religion and identity? So I am on the right side. It is you who are on the wrong side. And this is what I want to tell friends in Israel. You were fighting against, you said never again. And look at what you're doing yourself.
Pervez, 2 minutes for closing arguments. 2 minutes.
Yes, what?
Yeah, to close. Your closing statements from you.
Well, I think we've talked about everything. I think the lessons of history are there before us. The horrors should never be repeated. What happened in 1947 was a disaster that is reverberating into the 21st century and will reverberate beyond. To separate peoples on the basis of any ideology, whether that be a religious one or a nationalist one, is wrong, because we have to realize the oneness of humanity. We all came from common roots, and in the time that we are here on earth, we must learn to live peacefully, accommodate the other. And now there is no longer a choice, because all our societies are diverse. They have different peoples living in them. Maybe it was possible back in the past for only Muslims to live in a state or only Hindus to live in a state. That's not possible anymore. Now we live in, even if they are not democracies, we live in societies where there are very diverse peoples. And hence, this is not an option. This is a necessity for the majority. Of course, even for, much more so for the minority, but even for the majority, it is necessary that they learn to accommodate diverse opinions. And so allow freedom of thought, freedom of speech, open media, and minimal policing.
Just one line. Young people in particular say, what can I do? What can I do? And when you talk about this, they say that, the government is persecuting, there can be consequences, I can go to jail, how can I do this? So I'm reminded of, actually, in every ethical system, I'm sure there are answers. What is your duty when you see great injustice and suffering before you? But there's something that I'm told Prophet Muhammad said, which I think is relevant, which is, at the very least, respond from your heart. जब आप अन्याय देखते हैं, दुख देखते हैं, आपको बुरा तो लगे, यहीं शुरुआत होती है. Then next, some of us are braver and we respond with our tongue. We speak out against the injustice. A few of us are even braver and we respond with our hands, which is that we act against the injustice. My problem with my country is not that there are not enough of us responding even with our tongues or our hands. My problem is we're not responding with our hearts. No one is going to put you into prison because you feel badly that injustice is happening. Start feeling badly. Start feeling the pain. Be kind. And we'll take the next step.
Thank you very much. In that note, we end this conversation, but if you want to read more from them, you can Google the respective names. Harshji writes quite prolifically, mostly in Scroll recently, but he has written in many other Indian outlets. You can read his old articles also. And to understand the latest situation in India, you can follow the recent Scroll articles. Pervez, he writes very prolifically, but in the scientific journals, not in mass media. Still, you can find some very, very thought-provoking articles by Pervez in Himal South Asian that you can check out in Google. And one in particular is, he has written after India and Pakistan tested atomic bombs. And there are some quite provocative articles in Himal South Asian. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for listening to the session passionately. Thank you very much.
Jiwan Kshetry.